What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. So today I wanted to go ahead and continue our conversation surrounding Hogwarts Legacy and the Quidditch fiasco that's going on. There are multiple sides to this discussion, and I think we can actually from there interpolate what might go on with this particular game mode. I think Hogwarts Legacy right now is a foundational game. It is a game that's going to be gracing both the past generation, but more importantly, the new generation of consoles going forward. And I think if the success is massive enough, then what we're going to have is an established IP that can continue to go on. So think about IPs that have been established in this methodology. You can say maybe God of War, Uncharted. You can look at even maybe the Star Wars series, Jedi Fallen Order. Say that one is kind of newer in case you don't want to go to the older ones. And the Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, even if there had already been a lot of different Star Wars games, it's starting itself a new methodology. It's starting itself a new story, new protagonist, and new approach towards the Star Wars universe. So even though there have already been older Harry Potter games, I think Hogwarts Legacy is trying to do some kind of a fresh start in its own little dynamic side. And so with the talk about Quidditch and that experience, it makes a whole lot of sense that there are some possibilities that Quidditch will more than likely be in a sequel of the game. Now, in my last few videos, I talked about the difficulty and some of the challenges that it takes to put together a video game. And I understand that many people feel differently and say, well, it would have been a very wonderful idea. This is the next gen of consoles that are coming. So why is it such a big deal? The truth is, the development challenges are things that I feel like if you don't necessarily get yourself involved with in terms of knowing and learning, it's going to be very difficult for you to kind of see where those challenges actually do lie. And yes, I know Hogwarts Legacy is more than likely going to be moving with the next gen of consoles, and even the old gen of consoles could have been able to take Quidditch, no doubt. But it's a matter of choosing and picking what you want to be the crux of your game and being able and willing to sacrifice the things that you don't feel are going to be solid enough to make the experience 100% wonderful. And I think that's where the developers are. But I don't think they are closed to the idea of Quidditch as a whole. I think DLC is something that I strongly believe this can actually use to bring this mode to the community. And I say this because one thing about DLCs is they usually get their planning phase while the game is being developed. Somewhere maybe towards the end of development of the game. And when I say towards the end of development of a game, I might be talking about 2 years. I mean, one thing about development is it's relative when you actually put it in numbers or put it in a timeline. And this DLC may be something that they say, the fans seem to be asking for this particular game mode. Why don't we look for a way to implement, the DLC? So they can take a set of developers aside, and this is how they usually do it in many studios. Take a set of developers and say, hey, start working on the core concept based on the base game that we have. That's, the Hogwarts Legacy game. And they can start fine-tuning and building this Quidditch mode, designing the rules for it, because the rules are not necessarily just going to be writing down the rules on paper. Actually, the rules are going to be you developing and programming what these rules are going to look like within the game engine, because Quidditch basically reshapes the entire game. It is a mode that's based on aerial traversal. It's not necessarily like how the Hogwarts Legacy game is, which is an adventure game, which, yes, you as the main character or your enemy characters are either, roaming, or maybe they might be floating in the air or whatever it is, but that's basically a limited set of movement options. But with Quidditch, it takes it to a whole different dimension. Everyone at this point is now on a broom flying all over the place. You have to have directionality, control, feel. And if you are flying on a broom, you really got to feel it if you're actually playing that mode. The Quidditch mode is actually a very exciting mode. And so for you to create those feels and make it authentic would require some heavy lifting, especially in today's modern day and age. It's not something that we can make mediocre. And I doubt the team at Avalanche want to make a mediocre version of it. So I think a DLC mode or an expansion of the story might go ahead and feature something like this as the game is in development, or maybe for a future project down the road. And when it comes to DLC and when it comes to, say, future expansions on a video game, most times developers don't even like talking about that. And even if they decide right now, seeing the reaction of fans and saying, oh, it seemed like a lot of people would love this mode, it will probably still take a while for them to be able to get something on the ground going, because there's just so much work that goes into it. For those who may or may not know, I made in my last video also a small announcement that Hogwarts Legacy is going to be featured in a live event that's actually being set up by Autodesk, that they are going to be showing how they use Maya and Motion Builder to do some things and animations and all of that stuff. And that's just one aspect of, the whole development of this game. I mean, I wish they could do an exhibit for the art and some exhibit for maybe the programmers and how they were able to build the world and build the rules. In fact, there's so many things in a video game. Many people don't necessarily consider how much each thing weighs on a video game, like visual effects. You can see the magic spells being cast and all of the visual effects, all of the reactions, all of those things, they weigh on a video game. Many people don't realize that visual effects are very heavy and tasking on your hardware. I'm really shocked and surprised and I'm very impressed that they're bringing this game to the PlayStation 4, and the Xbox One, because it's insane the amount of work they would have had to do to just optimize the game. But Avalanche is quite legendary. I remember that their last game, Mad Max, was really solid. They had a very solid driving mechanic system that you could use to traverse the open world. They had a good combat system, something that was kind of close to what we had in the Arkham games, which is really nice. It wasn't free flow, but it was really, gritty and showed the world that you were in that case. So a game like this is really going to be something that they put together in a way that really does, enhance the experience of this particular world. So it is not a no-go area, but I'm saying, in my opinion, that for this particular Hogwarts Legacy release, it's more than likely not going to be there because of the amount of work. But in a future Hogwarts release, a DLC, an expansion, I definitely think the developers will do a good job to bring this mode to the game. Yes, there will be work that's required. Yes, there will be a lot of different things that they'll need to put together. And if they're going to be making a, continuation of this game, like I said in the beginning of this video, with things like the new established IPs that you've been seeing, like Star Wars, and the old ones like God of War and some others, then I strongly believe that, this Hogwarts Legacy is not going to release a second game without Quidditch mode. I mean, just seeing the reaction from fans, I'm certain that the developers are ready for them to be able to go ahead and do something like that. But at the end of the day, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. What do you think about Quidditch being in a major DLC or expansion, or even a sequel to Hogwarts Legacy? Do you think it's something that the developers definitely need to prioritize? I think so. I think for the next iteration, it has to be something that really does enhance the experience. And if you were to ask me, I would even prefer it to be in a DLC package or an expansion, because that way it's part of this already current Hogwarts Legacy game. And I'm sure that they can put it together. They can pull it off. They would, however, have to make some, considerations and put some things in place because of the old generation of consoles. But it is not necessarily a write-off project, in my opinion. But nonetheless, I'm glad that in this iteration, we are getting some transparency. They're telling us that it's not, or at least we're hearing news that it's not something that they're going to put in the game. And I understand why that is, because if it was in the game at the expense of the quality of the game, the overall, experience would be mediocre, in my opinion. So if they're going to be focusing on the things that are going to make their experience wonderful, then I think that has to take priority, regardless of if fans are wanting the Quidditch mode or not. I mean, I understand. It sounds like it's not necessarily something many fans would like in the way that I'm actually presenting it, but that's just one of the realities of this game development thing. And over the course of the next few weeks, we'll be discussing a lot more about game dev in regard to Hogwarts Legacy. I'm excited that it's being developed on the Unreal Engine, and that's an engine that, man, it's very fun to use, but also the whole task of game development will really, really expose how much, you need a lot of help and you need a lot of work to put together a game like this. But like I said, talk to me in the comment section. I really appreciate you guys' time and audience, and hopefully we'll talk very soon. Peace out.